The first snow of December always arrived without warning, as if winter enjoyed catching people unprepared. Daniel Carter noticed it only when Emma squealed from the front window. "Daddy, it's snowing." He looked up from the sink, hands still wet from washing dishes, and felt something in his chest loosen. Outside, thick white flakes drifted down slowly, transforming the tired street into something softer, cleaner, almost forgiving. "Looks like it," he said, forcing a smile. Emma was already pulling on her boots, hopping on one foot, her excitement spilling over. Daniel helped her with her coat, fingers practiced and gentle. Every movement felt familiar, too familiar. He'd done this alone for so many years that the routine no longer felt heavy. It felt permanent. Outside, the cold bit at his face as he grabbed the shovel from the garage. Emma raced ahead, her laughter slicing through the quiet morning. Daniel shoveled steadily, muscles working on instinct while his mind wandered the way it always did when things grew quiet. Christmas was a strange time for him. The lights, the music, the cheerful greetings, they all highlighted what was missing. He loved the holidays for Emma's sake, but for himself, they were reminders. Of a life that had once included someone else. Of conversations at the table that no longer happened. Of silence that stretched too long at night. "Daddy, look." Emma threw herself backward into the snow, arms and legs flapping wildly. "I'm making an angel." Daniel laughed despite himself and walked over. "That angel looks a little lopsided." "She's tired," Emma declared seriously. "Like you." That made him pause. "Am I?" he asked lightly. Emma nodded. "But that's okay. I'll help you." Daniel swallowed hard and kissed the top of her hat. "You already do." As they finished up and headed back inside, Daniel noticed movement across the street. Mrs. Caldwell was standing on her porch, bundled in a long coat, watching them with a soft smile. She always noticed. She noticed when Daniel's car didn't leave for work because Emma was sick. She noticed when the porch light stayed on late. She noticed when he looked a little more tired than usual. Mrs. Caldwell crossed the street carefully, holding a small wicker basket. "Merry Christmas," she called out. "Merry Christmas," Daniel replied, surprised but pleased. Emma ran to her immediately. "Are those cookies?" Mrs. Caldwell laughed. "Only the best kind." Inside, warmth filled the air. Cinnamon, pine, and something bittersweet Daniel couldn't quite name. Mrs. Caldwell set the basket down and looked around the living room, the modest tree, the handmade ornaments, the quiet effort of a man doing his best. "You've done a lovely job," she said softly. Daniel shrugged. "Emma helped. I can tell." There was a pause. Not awkward, just full. Mrs. Caldwell folded her hands together and tilted her head. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course. What's your Christmas wish this year?" The question landed heavier than it should have. Daniel opened his mouth, then closed it. He'd learned how to deflect questions like this. Humor. Simplicity. A quick answer to move things along. But something about the way she asked, genuine, curious, almost fragile, made lying feel wrong. He looked at Emma, who was already chewing thoughtfully on a cookie. "I wish my daughter stays happy," he said finally. Mrs. Caldwell smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "That's a beautiful wish." He nodded, relieved. "But," she added gently, "that's not the whole one, is it?" Daniel stiffened. He hadn't realized how tired he was of being careful. How exhausting it was to carry everything alone and never admit it. "I don't really make wishes for myself," he said quietly. Mrs. Caldwell studied him the way someone studies a photograph they've seen many times, searching for details others might miss. "And if you did?" she asked. The silence stretched. Daniel's voice dropped. "I guess, I wish I wasn't always doing this alone." The words surprised him as much as they did her. "I love my daughter," he continued quickly, as if afraid he'd been misunderstood. "She's my world. But sometimes I wish there was someone else here. Someone who'd sit at the table. Someone who'd ask how my day was and actually stay to hear the answer." Mrs. Caldwell felt her chest tighten. She had imagined him saying something like this 100 times, but hearing it out loud was different. Painful, hopeful, dangerous. "I've gotten used to being the strong one," Daniel went on. "The reliable one. And after a while, you stop expecting more." Emma looked up. "Daddy." He smiled at her. "It's okay, pumpkin." Mrs. Caldwell reached out, touching his arm. The contact was brief, but it carried years of quiet observation and unspoken care. You don't have to stop expecting, she said softly. Not forever. Daniel let out a small, humorless laugh. I wouldn't even know where to begin. Her hand lingered a moment longer than necessary, then withdrew. I should go, she said, her voice steady but her heart anything but. Daniel nodded. Thank you for the cookies. She paused at the door. Merry Christmas, Daniel. Truly. As she walked back across the street, snow crunching beneath her boots, Mrs. Caldwell felt something inside her give way. Not shatter, just bend under the weight of realization. She had hoped. Not foolishly. Not loudly. Just enough to hurt. Inside, Daniel leaned against the door after closing it, staring at the wood grain as if it might offer answers. He hadn't planned to say any of that. But now that it was out, he couldn't take it back. Emma wrapped her arms around his waist. Daddy. Yeah, I'm glad you're not alone. Daniel hugged her tightly. Me too. But later, when the house grew quiet and the snow fell thicker, Daniel stared out the window and felt the ache settle in again. Because love, real love, wasn't something you could wish away. And this Christmas, for the first time in years, he realized just how badly he wanted it. That night, the house felt quieter than usual. Daniel sat alone at the kitchen table long after Emma had gone to bed. Her bedroom door was slightly open, a warm yellow glow spilling into the hallway, the soft sound of her breathing steady and calm. He listened to it like a lifeline. The mug of tea in front of him had gone cold, untouched. Mrs. Caldwell's question replayed over and over in his mind. What's your Christmas wish? He hadn't meant to answer the way he did. The words had slipped out because she had looked at him like she already knew the truth, like she had been waiting patiently for him to admit it. Daniel ran a hand through his hair and stared at the window. Snow drifted past the glass, thick and endless, erasing the street one layer at a time. He wondered how many years he'd been living like that, slowly burying his own wants beneath responsibility, routine, and survival. Across the street, Mrs. Caldwell hadn't turned on her lights. She sat in the dim living room, still wearing her coat, hands folded in her lap. The house felt larger than usual, every sound echoing too loudly, the ticking clock, the hum of the heater, the quiet ache in her chest. She hadn't expected his answer to hurt. Not because it was cruel, but because it was honest. For years, she had told herself she admired him in the way neighbors do. Respect, concern, kindness, safe emotions. But when he spoke, when his voice dropped and his guard slipped, something inside her had shifted beyond control. He didn't want anyone. He wanted a life shared. And she knew, with painful clarity, that she wasn't part of the picture he imagined. Mrs. Caldwell stood and walked to the window. Daniel's porch light was still on. She could see his silhouette moving slowly inside the house, shoulders slumped, posture heavy with exhaustion. She pressed her palm to the glass. You deserve more, she whispered, not just to him, but to herself. The next morning arrived sharp and cold. Emma burst into the kitchen, already buzzing with excitement. Daddy. Today's Christmas Eve. Daniel smiled, but it felt distant. He made pancakes on autopilot, laughing at the right moments, answering Emma's questions without really hearing them. There was a knock at the door. His heart reacted before his mind did. Mrs. Caldwell stood on the porch, bundled tightly, her expression calm but unreadable. In her hands was a small envelope. Good morning, she said. Good morning, Daniel replied. Come in, it's freezing. She hesitated, then shook her head. I won't stay. Emma appeared behind him. Hi, Mrs. Caldwell. Her smile softened instantly. Hello, sweetheart. She handed Daniel the envelope. I wanted to give you this. What's this? He asked. Just something I needed to say. He opened it slowly. The handwriting was neat, careful, deliberate. Daniel. Some people survive by being strong. Others survive by being kind. You do both. Never believe that goes unseen. His throat tightened. This is really thoughtful, he said quietly. She nodded. You made me remember something important. That even quiet lives carry deep courage. There was a pause. The air felt heavier, charged with everything neither of them was saying. I hope I didn't make things awkward yesterday, Daniel said. I don't usually talk like that. You didn't, she replied quickly. Then softer, you trusted me. He searched her face. Are you okay? The question almost broke her. Mrs. Caldwell smiled. Not the warm, neighborly smile she always wore, but something smaller, braver. I will be. Emma tugged on her sleeve. Are you going somewhere? Mrs. Caldwell knelt in front of her. Just visiting my sister for a while. Emma frowned. But Christmas. I'll still be back, she promised. Sometimes people just need a little space to listen to their hearts. Daniel felt the shift then, the goodbye hiding behind polite words. I didn't know you were leaving, he said. I didn't either, she replied honestly. Until I realized I should. They stood in silence for a moment too long. Merry Christmas, Daniel, she said finally. Merry Christmas, he answered, his voice rough. She walked away without looking back. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, Mrs. Caldwell's absence already louder than her presence had ever been. He realized how often she had filled the spaces of his life, small kindnesses, quiet check-ins, steady concern. And he wondered how many times he'd mistaken her care for background noise simply because he wasn't ready to hear it. Emma padded into his room sometime after midnight. Daddy. Hey, pumpkin. Bad dream. She climbed into his bed and curled against him. Mrs. Caldwell was sad today. He hesitated. Yes, I think she was. Did we do something wrong? No, he said quickly, holding her closer. Sometimes grown-ups get hurt even when no one means to hurt them. Emma thought for a moment. Does that happen to you? Daniel closed his eyes. Yes. Christmas morning came softly. Emma tore through presents with joy, laughter filling the house. Daniel watched her, smiling, but something inside him felt unsettled. He kept glancing at the window, half expecting to see Mrs. Caldwell crossing the street. She didn't come. Later that evening, as Emma played with her toys, Daniel stood by the tree, staring at the lights. For the first time in years, he felt the weight of his loneliness clearly, not as something noble or necessary, but as something unfinished. Mrs. Caldwell sat miles away, wrapped in a blanket on her sister's couch, staring at unfamiliar walls. Her heart ached, but beneath the ache was a quiet strength. She had loved quietly, and she had let go with dignity. Back in his living room, Daniel whispered into the quiet, I don't want to just survive anymore. And somewhere between loss and longing, he realized the truth. Sometimes the greatest gift heartbreak gives you is the courage to finally admit what your heart wants next.